worship to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether it's an act of worship done by the heart or the speech or actions. So it is very easy for the person to enter into the fold of Islam with the speech, and of course the heart has to have the belief. And once a person says Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, he can also go outside the fold of Islam with a statement that he would make, mocking the religion, for example, or saying the words of kufr. Of course, there's details of this, and our job is not to accuse others of being disbelievers after being Muslims, but it's something that is important for us to be warned against, so that we don't fall into the acts of kufr or disbelief and so on. So shirk billah, we talked about the shirk, and there are the different types of shirk in the ayat of the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And one important point with the shirk, there are many of course, that people really, when they worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to see it in the proper way. These people are worshipping shaitan. They are shaitan worshippers, Satan worshippers. Satan worshippers, or the devil worshippers, are not just a cult or those who would have some, certain rituals and they worship literally the shaitan. Anyone that worships any other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are in reality worshipping the shaitan. And the evidence of that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ وَيُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَمَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ ضَلَالًا بَعِيدًا إِنْ يَدْعُونَ مِنْ دُونِهِ إِلَّا إِنَاثًا وَإِنْ يَدْعُونَ إِلَّا شَيْطَانًا مَرِيدًا لَعَنَهُ اللَّهُ وَقَالَ لَأَتَّخِذَنَّ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ نَصِيبًا مَفْرُوضًا وَلَأُضِلَّنَّهُمْ وَلَأُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ وَلَآمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَا يُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ الْأَنْعَامِ وَلَآمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَا يُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يَتَّخِذِ الشَّيْطَانَ وَلِيًّا مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ فَقَدْ خَسِرَ خُسْرَانًا مُبِينًا يَعِدُهُمْ وَيُمَنِّيهِمْ وَمَا يَعِدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ إِلَّا غُرُورًا أُولَئِكَ مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمُ وَلَا يَجِدُونَ عَنْهَا مَحِيصًا. The ayah that we should all know, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive the shirk, that people would associate partners with Him, and He subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive anything less than that. So the worst sin is to associate partners with Allah. The next ayah, it says إِن يَدْعُونَ. That means they do not call upon anyone, but they call basically inathan, they call females, because the Arabs in the Jahiliyyah, they would kill their daughters when they're born, and they would claim that these are the angels, and even the names of their idols that they used to worship, female names, Al-Lat, Wal-Uzza, Al-Manan, and so on. But then the second part of the ayah says, وَإِن يَدْعُونَ إِلَّا شَيْطَانًا مَرِيدًا. In reality, indeed, they don't call anyone but the shaitan. So they're basically not calling these idols necessarily, they are in reality calling upon the shaitan, calling upon this renegade shaitan, the one that had taken it upon himself that he would give people the wishful thinking and deviate them. So they are basically worshipping the shaitan, and the shaitan is the one that whispered for them to worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why shirk billah related to the everlasting enemy to the human being, which is the shaitan. But sadly, the human beings, they think it's their intellect and their ideas and their magnificent thinking, and because they don't know the shaitan, right? When anything that is deviating away from the path, from the true path, from the salat al-mustaqim, shaitan whispers and people think it's their own thinking and so on. So we got to know that from the wahy. So the first one is ashirku billah, to associate partners with Allah. The second one was sihr. Sihr is sorcery or black magic or whatever there is. This is a destructive sin. And a sihr is in the same category of a shirk. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "As-sahir kafir." The sorcerer is a disbeliever. So anyone, even if he says La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah all day long, if he is dealing with sihr and making sihr and spells and all of these things, he is a kafir, a disbeliever. One statement, there's no differences here. And this is with regards with those who deal with black magic to harm others. And this is a reality, it's a fact. And it's mentioned in the Quran. And why the sahir or the sorcerer is a kafir? because he would not be able to do these things, and the jinn won't help him unless he would have to say the words of kufr. He has to curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, curse the Quran, do things like this for the jinn to help him. So this is a destructive sin, of course, and the harm that can happen from this is something that is very evil. So الشرك بالله والسحر وقتل النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق, and to kill the soul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade except by the right for it to be that which is done by the authorities as capital punishments and so on, and the rulings of that is clear. So killing, and this is one of the destructive sins. And killing is of course very obvious that it's very evil for a person to kill others. And we're living in a time where killing is the easiest thing. You know, every day there, if not tens, by the hundreds of people are being killed all over the world, and it's the easiest thing. A person even does not feel secure for his life. Anybody can be killed in any instant or so. And killing, which is such an evil act, that was initiated by the son, one of the sons of Adam, as it's mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the son of Adam, he takes all of the sins of those who came after him when they kill, because he's the one that initiated it, which shows the evilness of bearing the first sin. But also, one thing to pay attention to, and we're not in the subject of mentioning all the details of every one of these destructive sins, but mentioning some of the things that some people might ignore or not think about it. When we think about killing innocent people, we might think that we are away from this, alhamdulillah. And of course, this is very evil. Nobody, I don't think anyone here would say, I might, fall into this sin. It's an evil sin. It's very obvious, right? That we stay away from this. But we are in times of fitan. When there's times of fitan and tribulations, a person can help or can be a mean for bloodshed by a word of mouth. So that's why a person has to be careful with the words that he say. The word that he say that can go to the east or the west, or some sentences that he type and share with hundreds of people, millions of people, that you don't know the effect of these words that you would write or type, that someone at the other part of the world can take it and understand it in a certain way, or just basically by spreading statements of hating individuals, for example. Right? It can be something simple like this. You don't intend, of course, to harm that person, but someone might take the words and he would act on it in a different way. As we see, for example, someone would hear all of the different negative things mentioned about Muslims, so he will call it kill a Muslim. Right? Some people are crazy like this, and they interpret things in their own way. So the same thing for a Muslim. If he starts saying things ignorantly, or type things that is ignorantly, a person might take that and he would act on it, and you would never know that till the day of judgment. But the point here is, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the qatil or the killer is not just the one that physically kills, it's also the one man a'ana ala qatli muslim walau bi shatri kalima, the one that helps to kill a Muslim even with half of a word that would help a person to kill another, to kill a Muslim. He shares with him the same crime, right? So maybe in the past it was more difficult, right? But with the ease of communication, half a word, sometimes it's many words that people say and they don't think of what they're saying, right? So this is one of the destructive sins. وَأَكْلُ الرِّبَا, and to eat, usually that's literally what it says, أكل الربا, to eat الربا. And الربا literally comes from a ziyada, or from something that is increased, which is the wealth when it's increased in an unlawful way. And the word أكل, to eat, it doesn't mean that the person, if he takes riba, not to eat with the money of riba, that means he's safe. Of course, it's not any use of the money of riba or any dealing with riba. This is one of the destructive sins. But the word akl riba, the word eating, is mentioned because that's what the norm of people would do, and it shows the evenness of it. So riba has details to it, right? And there is different types of riba. The very famous one is the riba al-nasi'a, or the riba of loans. That was the riba of Jahiliyyah that was well known, in which the people would take a loan to trade or to use it for whatever reason, and then after a prescribed time they would take the loan. And this is how the riba of Jahiliyyah was done at the time of Jahiliyyah, before the Prophet ﷺ. It even was much lesser than the riba that is present today in some extent. The person, the murabi, the person that would give people loans for riba, he would not give them because they are a necessity, or they're hungry, or they're starving to death. Sometimes people, they give this notion that this is how the riba of Jahiliyyah is. This evil man is waiting for the people, those who are starving to death, so he'd give them loan with interest, so he would use the need of them. The Arab would never do such a thing. They were so famous of being generous, and there's not even one incident that proves this. All of the riba at the time of the Arabs in Jahiliyyah was in trade. Their journey to the north and the journey to the south. So those who would take the loan with riba are those who are in business, those who are in trade. They're not taking it for necessity or anything, right? So they would take the money, and they won't take it with increase immediately. No, they would take the loan, and the deal was that if they would decide on the period, a month or 2 or 6 months or whatever, there's no interest, right? There's no increase. If he brings it back after the prescribed time, if he takes 1,000, he brings it back as 1,000, whatever the time that they agreed upon. If the time comes and he's not able to pay it, then the person would say, either you pay or awturbi, or you increase. And that's what the riba means. And that's where the ayat of the Quran, when it was revealed about riba, was revealed when this is happening, and this is the riba of the Jahili. And this is, of course, is a destructive sin. And it does not feel in the hearts of the people like killing feels, right? So it's in the same context. And with killing, people would say, all the decent people would say, there's no way, we're far away from this. This is such an evil crime, right? But for riba, people take it lightly, take it easy. And this is a test to the people of Iman. Whether they would take the haram as haram because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade it, or because of how we feel what's haram and what's not haram, and what humanity would agree with us that this is an evil thing, because all decent human beings, they would agree that killing is an evil thing, but not all of them would agree that riba is an evil thing. For us as Muslims, we should see that riba and usury is as evil as killing and so on, because this is one of the destructive sins. And the effect of what the riba does to humanity is such a destructive effect that we don't even have to see it. It's enough that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade it. It's the sinful act that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran declared war against those who deal with it. There's no sin in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, wait for a war, harb, from Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if you don't stay away from anything except the riba that was mentioned. That's why Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, when he was asked about the most severe sin mentioned in the Quran as far as the punishment is concerned in this life, he said, give me 3 days so that I would read the Quran and see. And after the 3 days, he said, I didn't see anything more severe than this ayah about فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And the harb, or this war from Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is not what people think of a war from a human being to a human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing is the like of Him. So it's not like a person will die if he deals with riba, where lightning comes from the skies and destroys his wealth and so on. Of course, there's no barakah in the wealth and anything else in this life, but the worst punishment for the one that deals with riba is that he will be misguided, that he will continue to be misguided if he does not repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That many punishments, one of which, as it's mentioned in the Quran, الذين يأكلون الربا لا يقومون إلا كما يقوم الذي يتخبطه الشيطان من المس ذلك بأنهم قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. These people, when they use their intellect, the disbelievers, and then when they said إنما البيع مثل الربا, buying and selling is the same thing as riba. What's the difference? That's what they said. And the same argument people are still using today. If I purchase something in this, of course it's not permissible to buy and sell in the masjid, but if a person purchases something from someone, a phone, say, for example, and then he goes to the next block and he sells it with more money, or even, you don't have to even do that. You purchase something from the internet, and then you have to have it in your hand first before. You cannot sell when you don't have the thing in your possession, by the way. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, نهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال تبع ما لا تملك. Do not sell what you don't own. So you have to have the possession of it, and then you would sell it. And you might do that when you just in front of your phone even, right? Buying and selling and so on. And you find yourself making a lot of money this way. And what's the difference between that and doing the same thing on the phone but with riba? Right? Giving loans, taking loans with interest and so on. This is haram and this is halal. Of course there's a big difference, and the wisdom behind it is different, totally different. But again, when they said that and they used their own thinking against the orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right after that, He did not mention things for them to be convinced. It was sufficient to say قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made halal al-bay, trade and buying and selling, and He made haram al-riba. That's sufficient for the believers. That's it. Did not say, well, the wisdom behind this is such and such, and buying and selling. There's no such a thing in the Quran. The matter is clear, because the call in the beginning to who? Ya ayyuha alladhina kafaru, or you who disbelieve, stay away from riba? No. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, or you who believe. Right? So if they are believers, then ذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَا, stay away from riba, so they stay away from the riba because they are believers. Right? And this is a sign of the iman is very weak when a person would break the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like this. And when they used, these believers, when they said the bay' is like riba, before that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said what happens to the person that deals with riba, that he will, his life, or the ayah refers to the day of judgment and also refers to this life. الذين يأكلون الربا لا يقومون إلا كما يقوم الذي يتخبطه الشيطان من المس. They don't stand up or they don't resurrect in the day of judgment, except in the same way that a shaitan is beating the person from being insane. When a person is insane, being beaten by shaitan, how does he look like? He doesn't look like he's insane. So this is the same way with those who would consume riba. They will look like this in the day of judgment, as the ayah means. And also, as the ulama, they say in the tafsir of the ayah, one of the greatest punishment in this life, they will have distorted vision of things. They become clueless of what things are, what the right, what the truth and falsehood from. They become misguided. And they would say the silliest statements. And they would say the most ignorant statements and believe the most silliest things. All of which is a punishment because they did not repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the riba. So and more, but this is just some of the meanings of the harb, or the war from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the humiliation and so on and so forth. And if this one sin that we think, that we mention, and we look at the state and the status of the Muslims today, then we don't need to discuss further why the situations of the Muslims today are in whatever that state. This one example is enough, and this is just one category of sin, right? So this is a destructive sin, and a person has to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially at times when a person, if he does not eat or use riba, the ghubar or the dust of the riba would afflict him, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So aklu riba wa aklu mal al-yatim, and to eat or to consume the wealth of the orphan. The orphan, the definition of al-yatim is the one that lost his father before the age of puberty. That's the definition of al-yatim in Islam. Not the one that lost his mother, but the one that lost his father. His father died before reaching the age of puberty. So till the age of puberty, he's called yatim. He's an orphan. And that orphan, he has no means of sustenance or provisions because his father died. So when someone takes the wealth of this orphan in an unlawful way, even if that person is his mother, they fall into this category. And this is another thing that we should pay attention to. And I'm again just mentioning some of the things that might slip away without thinking about it. I'm not talking about the obvious ones. Akl mal yatim, to take the wealth of the orphan, this is an evil thing, right? Very obvious. But the way situations and financial situations nowadays for many people, when the husband and the wife and everybody's in the household, there's no such a thing as this is the man's money and this is the wife's money. they all take from the same account. They have one account and they share this and they, right? But in Islam, there is separate financial identity for every person. The woman, she has zakat to pay if she has wealth, and the man has a zakat. It's not joint account type of thing. Each person has his own financial identity. It's okay to have things together, yes, but and the zakat will be taken from everything, which is fine. But as long as if they are put together, it should not change the situation of the zakat, right? It's like two people, they have two herds of animals and so on. Sometimes they benefit when they put them together so that they don't pay zakat, or vice versa. Each person has to make sure when they give the zakat, they know what they own so that they give. And the same thing when the husband, for example, dies. When he dies and he left money, many people, the wife will continue to spend as if nothing happened, right? And the money that is in the bank or whatever, she spent from it because this is the same family, one family. So there's nothing happened differently. This is a dangerous thing, because once that husband died, there is inheritance, and there's people inherit from him, and this is according to the laws from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he has a father, the father has a share. If he has a mother, like many people, they ignore this. You know, the father or the man that died, he has children and the wife, and there's no such a thing as giving the share of the father of the deceased, or the mother of the deceased, or you have a grandfather or grandmother, right? Or he has, if he has children, of course, then the brothers and sisters, they don't take anything. But this is something that people need to pay attention to. And the children, they need to have their share of inheritance clear from the moment that he died. So his wealth is to be distributed. And then to spend on these children from his wealth, yes, this is something to be done, but to be spent accordingly, right, in the proper way, because this is their wealth. And the person in charge becomes a trustworthy person, that he has to make sure that he spends it in the wise way. And this is, again, a detailed subject, but the point here, we should not belittle these statements or think that Aklu Mal al-Yatim is for these evil people that take the wealth of the orphans. A person might be very decent, and he's falling into this category when they don't apply the orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next one, وَالتَّوَلِّي يَوْمَ الزَّحْفِ, to turn away from the day of الزحف, marching towards the enemy. So when people are in the ranks, in the army, in the battlefield, it is a major sin for the person to leave and to run away, because he would even subject the lives of others into danger. So he has to be patient and not to do that, but he has to obey the orders and so on. So this is in the context of war in the armies. So this is one of the major sins, which shows also the believers, they are brave. They have to have this bravery in their hearts, that only things happen by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the things also to be mentioned, we know that al-Hajj is the jihad of al-Nisa. As the Prophet ﷺ said, al-Hajj jihad al-Nisa. Hajj is the jihad of women. And when a person is deprived from the proper jihad, there's a value, which is Hajj, right? So this is another thing. If a person finds in himself the means that he can go for Hajj, he should not deprive himself. And I know this might be a debatable issue to some. They would say, well, it's mandatory once in a lifetime, which is of course no debate about this. It's only mandatory once in a lifetime. After that, it's not mandatory. But situations are different from one person to the other. And when a person, you know, the past, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and the life of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, their life was spending from their wealth and going with their own selves for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so on. So when a person finds a way where he can spend from his wealth and go physically for the Hajj and go through that, he has the means to do that, he should not deprive himself, especially when it's made easy. In other parts of the world, it's become very difficult. And to say, well, to make it easy for others by having less people, this is, it's true to certain situations. If a person would go and doesn't find his heart present in the Hajj and so on, yes, maybe this is the situation, but if a person has the means, he should do that. So this is just something here with regards to the virtue. And the Prophet ﷺ said, تَابِعُوا بَيْنَ الْحَجِّ وَالْعُمْرَةِ فَإِنَّهُمَا يَنْفِيَانِ الْفَقْرَ كَمَا يَنْفِي الْكِيرُ خَبَثَ الْحَدِيدِ. that keep on doing Hajj after Umrah, Umrah after Hajj, because that takes away poverty from you, the same way the fire takes the dirt or the impurities of the iron. The last or the seventh destructive sin, وقذف المحصنات المؤمنات الغافلات. قذف is when you throw something. Right? This is what قذف means. So المحصنات are the chaste women, the one that is chaste or married, the one that is chaste. المؤمنات, the believers, the believing women. الغافلات. الغافلات, الغفلة is a negative thing. Ghafla is to be forgetful. But here it's mentioned as a praise to the Muslim woman, that she is in a state of forgetfulness. What it means is that she is not aware of the tricks and the ways of men, because she does not mix with them. So she's, I don't know if you can say naive, because as a fact, yes.
She believes everything that he said.
Right, she believes everything is being said. Because as a fact, of course this is not for every single person, but men, when they mix with women in a non-proper way, men that are very deceitful. They want to get their desire, so they would plot and they would do things and they would try, because of the sinful act that they have. And many times, of course, when the fitrah or the nature get corrupted, they both becomes deceitful, or they both would seek one another. But normally, originally, the man is talib, he seeks, and the woman matluba. The woman is the one that is being sought. That's normally the situation is. So that's why the one that seeks, he's the one that would plot and plan and things like this. So when the Muslim woman is away from this, from these evil mixing and so on, and then she is being slandered and accused of zina wal-'iyadhu billah, this is a very evil thing, one of the destructive sins. And this is by the word of mouth. If a person would accuse a woman of committing zina without having the 4 witnesses, right? This is a major sin, even if he saw the act with his own eyes, even if there's a video. Wal-'iyadhu billah. It is not permissible for that person to say that so and so committed zina. And the reason for that is not that the deen of Islam is going after those who commit this crime to go catch them or to expose them. It's the total opposite. One of the goals of the Sharia is to conceal these sins, not to expose it, to keep it hidden. If people would do these sins, it's to be hidden and not to be exposed. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it almost impossible for a person to be caught in this, by having 4 witnesses to witness the act. If 3, they witnessed the act with their own eyes, and there was no doubt, and they saw the exact act happening, and if they go and they say that we saw such and such, the judge would order for the 3 of them to be lashed. Why? Because they're committing slander. They witnessed it, they saw it. They would swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unless it's 4. And there's a wisdom behind it, as we said. So now it's so easy for a person to say this or to say that. This is not permissible, and a person has to make sure that he protect the honor and dignity of others by watching what a person says and so on. So these are the destructive sins, or 7 destructive sins, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, and they are mentioned in many more details, more even hadith that talks about these major sins, like for example, and we just 5 more minutes inshallah ta'ala, we'll stop. When the Prophet ﷺ was asked, سُئِلَ عَنْ أَيِّ ذَنْبٍ أَكْبَرٍ, what is the biggest sin? He said, أَن تَجْعَلَ لِلَّهِ نِدًّا وَهُوَ خَلَقَكَ, to have a partner with Allah when He's the one that created you. That's the worst sin. And you see the significance here. He created you, so how can you have a partner with Him in worship? Then he was asked, alayhi salatu wasalam, ثُمَّ أَيْنَ, then what? He said, أَن تَقْتُلَ وَلَدَكَ خَشْيَةَ أَن يَطْعَمَ مَعَكَ, that you would kill your son out of the fear that he would share your food. Those who would do abortion and kill their own children, and they think that they are civilized, they're killing human beings out of the fear of poverty, or they would share their provisions, or they're not ready for this, and this is the second evil, as the Prophet ﷺ said. قال ثم أي, Then what's the next? What's the less or the less bigger sin? قال أن تزاني حليلة جارك, that you would commit zina, fornication, with the wife of your neighbor. Zina is zina, it's a major sin. But for the rights of the neighbor, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the believers to honor the rights of the neighbor, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا يزال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه سيورثه. Jibreel alayhi salam kept on ordering me to take care of the neighbor till I thought that the neighbor will have a share of inheritance. That when a person dies, his neighbor will have a share. The Prophet ﷺ said, I thought that this would reach this level. So when a person commit this sin with the wife of his neighbor, this is one of the worst, one of the destructive sins. And of course, shahadatul zur, to have a false testimony. And the shahada, when a person is called to testify, doesn't have to be in front of the judge in the court of law. In any situation, if people are in dispute, right, and they would sit together to try to bring things back together and so on, and they ask for a witness, right? And the witness, if he says a false witness, this is one of the destructive sins, as the Prophet ﷺ said, أَلَا أُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِأَكْبَرِ الْكَبَائِرِ, should I inform you of the major sins? He said, قَوْلُ الزُّورِ, to say a false statement, أو شهادة الزُّورِ, to witness in a false way, that a person would say, I saw when he didn't see. That's why witnessing, and these are rulings that a person has to believe and to have to know it. It's like you witness on the things like the sun. You see, I witness there's a sun in the skies today, right? This is the level of certainty. Not witnessing on things that it might be or might not be. Or you witness based on the witness of someone else and you trust him. This is all not valid. Witnessing is when a person sees something with his own eyes and he is certain about it and there's no doubt whatsoever. And if any doubt, then the witness goes away. And there's no witnessing in this case. Again, many things, but we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from sins, and that we stay away from the major ones and the minor ones, and to exalt the importance of applying the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbids something, this is something that should be huge in our hearts. We should not belittle it, and it doesn't matter that the whole humanity is doing one thing, that becomes easy for the person to see. As we said, one of the things that makes the major sin major is when a person gets used to it, he doesn't feel the greatness of it in his heart anymore. And this is more destructive and more evil than someone would get so much terrified when he sees a sin. So being in environments where the sins are so common, that's even more, that would bring the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hearts, and more actions to be done, and more seeking forgiveness, and more ibadah, and more repentance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the person to protect himself from falling into the sins.